along the route the hunters had planned to take. This is Genie Chance, KENI News, on the go.
In the Anchorage area right now, the damage is going to exceed $125 million. This sounds awfully high, but the damage is very, very extensive. The surface, when you're taking good buildings like new buildings, the KENI building is severely damaged, and I question whether it will remain standing after this may have to be destroyed. None of the other big buildings are, the Lake KENI buildings sustained major damage. All in all, the homes and so on, it's going to be fantastic. I think we'll be a year from now before we have even a real good idea. And then on top of that, of course, you have the city with all their utilities, water, power, gas, of course the franchise, but they have the same problems. This is not going to be any easy matter. Now, the one thing I have done, and I pass it on again to a lot of people, and suggested that if you haven't done it, I'd suggest you turn your gas lines off. And I'd also suggest that while the power is out, that you kick your emergency breakers off in the house. When power starts to go back on, if and when, it'll come back soon, but we may have shorted wires in your home or something. It's better to be there at that point and not have any stray Jews go anywhere. So I've taken precaution in our buildings and at home to knock the main panel off and turn the gas off and just close it up. And of course, if you smell gas, certainly keep your open lights away, cigarettes or candles.
I was going to say, I think this is a good time to give up smoking, just as a precaution. Thank you very much, Don, for giving us that report. Have you been in the outside area? You've been downtown all since the earthquake, haven't you?
I came from home downtown. I haven't been in the outside area. I did go skirt the 9th and imminent area, which is down by the new Four Seasons. The Four Seasons, the lift slab is on the ground. It's total. There are several homes, beautiful homes down on the bluff there that are gone, and part of the road is gone. The tennis court that was at 9th, and probably M or N down in there, is sitting in a hole about 15 feet deep. That part of the park strip is gone. The road on the end of there is caved and crevice, and I know there's extensive damage all the way along that hillside.
It's pretty extensive, especially in the downtown Anchorage area and in the Anchorage area itself. Outside the city, in the Spenard area, it doesn't seem to be as severe. As a matter of fact, I came all the way from the vicinity of the Idle Hour, where I live, up on the hill there, near International Airport, and coming all the way in, I didn't see any real major damage other than just stock and whatnot turned over in the service stations and whatnot. I didn't see any real major damage until I got to the Northern Light Shopping Center, where all the windows were broken out. And it was a pretty big shock to me to drive downtown and really realize how much damage there had been.
Jim? I had one other comment. I know that several people have hollered about water being off, and it is off, and it might be a while until it's restored. And while some shudder at the suggestion, the most available and the cleanest water we have available in most homes for emergency supply is the water tank in the back of the toilet. And if you just lift the top of the tank off and fill a few pots, at least you're going to have drinking water, take care of the kids that are gone.
There's one thing.
So that's one place, while some shudder, it's clean, sanitary, no problem.
And there's one thing, don't flush it. And absolutely don't use the sewer facilities whatsoever, as a matter of fact. I've got one message here, Bob, and then I'll turn it right back to you. The Episcopal Church at 8th and F is a temporary shelter. The Baptist Church on 7th Avenue is also a temporary shelter. They're accepting people for temporary shelter. And also the Seventh-day Adventist Church at 7th and A is also an emergency shelter. Okay, Bob, come in.
Okay, Jim, I have a message here. Dr. Elizabeth Tower, I think she's still here, went home and found that her family was gone. She lives on 2nd Street. If the family of a Dr. Elizabeth Tower would contact Civil Defense Headquarters, maybe we can get them together. I wish that she had stayed around. I think she just left. Also, I'd like to remind you down there at Civil Defense Headquarters that you advise Mr. Irwin Davis of the Consolidated Freightways, who has he has a cat. He has a cat and a small, what was it we said? A small crane. Yeah, a small crane. And he is still waiting right here, waiting for somebody to tell him where to go and take his equipment to work. Can anybody down there, have you decided yet where he's to go?
Bob, does he have the equipment with him, or is he alone?
He's alone, but the equipment, he had to evacuate out of that area down there around the warehouse area. They're evacuating everybody out, but he can get it to you if you just tell him where to go.
You're right. Well, if he would come down here himself and not bring the equipment, of course, I assume that he didn't have the equipment. If he would come down here himself and talk with the civil defense people, they have need for it, and they have a dispatcher here who can dispatch it. I'm not in a position where I can talk with anybody. Okay?
Okay, then he'll proceed on as he had started to do once before. Did you get that message, Mr. Davis? Thank you very much for waiting. He was waiting here, sitting on the stairs, until somebody told him which direction to go. I had a...
Bob, I need it.
Yeah, okay, take it, Jim.
Fine, very good. Let's go inside the Genie Chance.
Yes, here's Genie Chance inside the Public Safety Building here at 6th and C. We would like to reiterate, we have no need at this time for the man with the equipment. Now, we are sure that it will be needed by tomorrow, but at this time, we are still doing survey work and evaluating where this will be needed. So if that man who has the equipment and has so graciously offered to use it and furnish it here for this emergency work, the best thing for him to do right now is to go to bed and get a good night's sleep, because I'm sure we'll have a full day of work ahead for him tomorrow.
Too late. He's on his way down there now.
Check in here at the Public Safety Building. All work will be coordinated. A chlorinator is desperately needed at Providence Hospital in order to continue their water supply. The police dispatcher just now asked me if I would please request that anybody who has a spare chlorinator available could get it to Providence Hospital. They are in dire need of a chlorinator there at Providence Hospital. All movable equipment and supplies were evacuated from Presbyterian Hospital to Providence. At this point, they are making every effort to keep the hospital supplied with water, but they have now put out a call for a chlorinator.
I'd like to say this, that anybody that right now that doesn't have a place to stay, if they will contact the fire station immediately, we have places at the Armory, we have places at the National Guard hangar, we have places at the Carpenter's Hall. We'd like to have everybody as quickly as possible contact the fire stations. We have transportation from the military that will take you to these various places if you don't have a way to get there. It's waiting here to take people, so any of you that are in groups, don't sit out in your car. Get under cover now.
That's right. We're not expecting too good a weather, and we're not expecting a Florida-like temperature here in Anchorage tonight. However, we can all feel most fortunate that Anchorage was not completely leveled. Anchorage has sustained a great deal of damage, and it has been a shattering blow to a very proud people. However, many of us have enjoyed, actually taken a great deal of pride in seeing the way the people of Anchorage, Alaska can rise to the occasion. Those of you whose services are not needed at this time, our urge to you is seek shelter, seek warmth. Be sure that you have plenty of food in your house. Flashlight batteries, use them sparingly, because we have no idea how long it will be before the power will be back on. There has been extensive damage to the power lines throughout the greater Anchorage area, both to the city power and to the Chugach Electric Association. All linemen have been called in by union officials to go to work to try to get the power back on. Efforts are being made to try to get the water supply back in operation. Water pressure is building up, and so that water can be available for emergencies. But we do urge people, please use this water sparingly. We want the water pressure to build up, so use the water sparingly.
Jim Dobson, I'm going to cut in on Genie Chance. Jim Dobson, would you speak to me?
Go right ahead, Bob. Go right ahead.
Everything.
Okay, Jim, I just had a report here that an announcement is being circulated that another earthquake is imminent. Have you heard anything from Civil Defense Headquarters about that, that people are being evacuated from the downtown area, including the 4th Avenue Theater building?
Bob, there is no way to predict an earthquake whatsoever. Now, this is a rumor. This is one of these rumors which we have got to stop right now. There is absolutely no way to predict an earthquake. Absolutely no way. An earthquake happens. It happens suddenly like this one did. There is no way to predict it. There was a tidal wave warning out, and they were evacuating people. A tidal wave has hit several areas. The tidal wave warning is out for the Anchorage area, and anybody living in the low-lying areas is urged to evacuate and move up off the beaches and out of the low-lying areas. And incidentally, speaking of this tidal wave, Kodiak was hit very hard. The waterfront was hit very hard. Valdez was hit very, very hard. Their waterfront hit very hard by a tidal wave. There's a report from Valdez that there are 3 dead and about 26 missing. Also Cordova, and we know that Seward was also hit by this tidal wave. The tidal wave is a threat. There could be as many as 2 or 3 tidal waves, depending on how strong the tremor was that caused the tidal waves. But there is absolutely no way to predict an earthquake.
Jim,
could come, but there is no way to predict an earthquake.
Jim?
The only thing you can do is to stay out of the way of overhanging buildings, buildings that are big and tall and already damaged. Stay out of the way of them. Go ahead, Bob.
I'm sorry, Jim. What I was trying to get in there for was because it might be a real good idea. This is my thought, too, that there's no way to predict an earthquake. At least I've never heard of anybody who could accurately predict when an earthquake would happen. But there's someone in an official car downtown, in a police car, did you say?
That's right.
Someone in a police car is driving around, and they're telling people that another earthquake is coming. Now, most people, I think, feel pretty much the same way we do about this, that you can't predict them. However, I think that someone from civil defense might do very well to do something, try to put this man straight, because he could create quite a bit of panic around the area by making such. Also, did you say you had heard it on another radio station?
Yes, that has been announced on the radio.
It has been announced.
He got his information.
Yeah, earthquakes are something that don't give any forewarning. As Jim says, it's when some layers of earth slide and underneath the crust of the earth, and this, of course, affects the crust, which is what we sit on. And so if there's anybody down there who can put this man straight, he could cause some undue panic, I'm sure, in town. Dolly, you were across the street at the post office, and you had some messages from over there. Would you mind giving them those?
Well, the Salvation Army has set up over there in the post office, and there are quite a number of people that they have billeted over there who had left with his family, wife and children, I believe, to take a drive just before the earthquake, and they have not heard from them since, and they're concerned about that also.
Well, fine. Also, we found out that the YMCA has plenty of water. They found a supply in their own hot water tanks. And
all of the Japanese airline people are safe, and they are at 218 East 10th. All of the Japanese airline people here in Anchorage are safe. The YMCA is in bad need of some white gas for lanterns and Coleman stoves and whatnot. That the YMCA is badly in need of white gasoline. And if you have any white gas, some cans of white gas around, would you take it down to the YMCA, please, so they can use it and heat up the coffee and food, right?
That's right.
Right, okay, fine. Those names I can't see. What are the names of those?
Madera.
Mrs. Madera?
Contact Dennis Madera.
And you're asked to contact Kenneth Madera. I imagine she knows where it is.
This is 1543rd K Street.
1543 K, okay. And also, once again, Bob Johnny's is asked to inside. So we'll go inside right now.
Yes, we have a request here for electrician Mel Berry to please report to the Presbyterian Hospital as soon as possible. This is Mel Berry, an electrician, is requested to please report to Presbyterian Hospital as soon as possible. Lieutenant Paul Greathouse of the Anchorage Police Department has asked me to please make this broadcast as soon as possible. We want electrician Mel Berry to report.
Activity there. They survived it very well, but then they began to evacuate later. Now, getting back to the Juneau area again, as we told you, the water was reported rising in Yakutat, and the water is in the streets of Cordova. Cordova is a low-lying community on the northern Gulf Coast right at the entrance to Prince William Sound. Here in this area, the Parker Tug and Barge Company reported that the water in Gastineau Channel dropped about 12 feet within a period of a half an hour, and then a few minutes later, the water began to rise again in Gastineau Channel area, about 6 inches in a few minutes. The tide is normally coming in at this time with high tide about 2 hours away, but apparently the Gastineau Channel area, these inland waters, are beginning to feel the impact of this tidal situation in the Gulf of Alaska. It does require longer to get into the inside waters, although the report we had from Ketchikan came from there about 7:30. It was about 7:45 over in Hoona, but the water at Yakutat is just beginning to rise. Apparently these are separate manifestations of tidal activity, because, as we said, it's very possible to imagine the water in the Gulf of Alaska, this great basin in the North Pacific, to be the normal tidal pattern being disturbed by these seismic shocks. But in the Juneau area, we will, of course, notify you immediately when any protective action or evacuating action is needed. Boat owners have been urged to check on their craft along the Juneau waterfront and out the Glacier Highway in exposed locations, because it will be impossible to escape some turbulence. But the latest word is that the water in Gastineau Channel dropped suddenly, but it's rising slowly, and apparently the same thing is taking place at Yakutat now. That's all we have to report this. In just a moment, we'll try to get out to our AP teletype here and see what's coming in over the telephone. Another very slow message. coming in here. These messages are often garbled. The circuit, they're having difficulty because of the circuit.
Runway damage. Tower damage.
Huge slide at Turnagain Arm. The Turnagain Bluffs, as we told you earlier, were reported to have sloughed off, damaging or destroying 40 or 50 homes in Anchorage. Anchorage is still the spot which has the greatest amount of damage, being, of course, the center of population there, the most highly developed area in which the quake was felt. But some of the smaller isolated towns, their condition is not known. The last report we had, we're attempting to get a repeat on that message because the circuit is encountering difficulties. These are landlines. There's a cable from Seattle to Ketchikan. There are undersea cables throughout southeast Alaska, but once the cables reach Yakutat, they go, or Skagway rather, they go by landline to Fairbanks and down into western Alaska. There's apparently some circuit trouble at this time, and it's impossible to clarify that last message. Apparently, though, a military radio station was picked up in Valdez, and although little information was...
Yep, that's it. That's all we have for you. We'll keep you posted tonight. Sure that their boats are very, very securely fastened. As I say, there have been reports as far down as Galveston and other areas of effects of the tidal wave. I think we had one here of some boats being rocked or damaged or something done down near Louisiana because of the... I saw it here one place, but I can't... In freakish tides reportedly caused by the Alaskan earthquake. The Weather Bureau reported a 6-foot wave of undetermined origin surging down the Gulf Coast, snapping lines and rolling sizable ships. Texas area residents in the low-lying areas were told to expect a 6-foot tidal wave in rough seas. It hit a little bit past 5:30, and that's all we have to report at the present time.
I have two messages here, Genie. They have all the help they need now at Providence Hospital. They do not need any more nurses or nurses' aides. They do have all the help they need at Providence Hospital for an electrician with a first-class license. A first-class electrician is needed at 7th and C at the Union 76 station there. There's a very urgent need for an...
First of all, I have a man who wants to get a message to Mr. Ben I. Perkins in Mountain View and ask him to open up the Union Hall for emergency. If Mr. Perkins is listening, or if someone who can get a message to him is listening, please open up the Union Hall so that for emergency use out in the Mountain View area. We don't know what kind of damage or destruction has been done out there.
On the 4th and Denali.
It's at 4th and Denali in Mountain View. There's all downtown at 4th and Denali, and to be used as an emergency shelter or emergency. Coming from Government Hill. They said it looked as though the fire was coming from Government Hill, and that it even appeared that maybe something blew up out there, but they're not... They said that it looked like it might have been the steam plant at Elmendorf, but that is an unconfirmed report at this moment. This is just from somebody's naked eye view from the top of the 4th Avenue Theater building looking over that way. That's what it appears to them. Okay, do you have more messages? Let me say that this is KENI Radio in Anchorage, Alaska, broadcasting under emergency conditions following the earthquake that occurred at 5:36 this afternoon on this 27th day of March. Now, I understand that somebody has a message down at the Civil Defense Head.
Yes, we're on here. Right now, thank you, Jim. We are talking about a need right now for the sanitarians of the Greater Anchorage Health District to assemble here at the water areas, and your need is needed right here. We hope you'll come by just as soon as you can. Pass the message along to those people you know who are members of the sanitation area of the Greater Anchorage. Sit here and you evaluate and you talk with people, and I've been talking with many of them. The great thing that happened is this right now, that people are aware of the need of civil defense, of a well-knit organization of civil defense. I've talked with the ham operators, and they assure me that the outside world is aware and cognizant of the fact of what's happened in Anchorage. It is difficult at this time, right now, to evaluate what has happened here as far as dollars and cents go. We don't know. We have no way of knowing. I've been told by members of the civil defense that tomorrow teams will go out and evaluate what has happened, that is, to buildings, to homes. We don't know right now how many people have been killed in this thing. We don't know. We have no way of knowing. So right now we're just standing by and we're transmitting messages to you on an emergency basis. And we hope you will bear with us, and I hope you will understand that all this is happening here in Anchorage on this Good Friday. And it's a very devastating thing. We turn you back now to...
And they lost everything. They lost the whole house out there. He understands that the family is safe, but he hasn't been able to contact them yet. So the Lou Liston family is, if they're listening, they should go to the John Helenthal's. That's where Lou will be, or check in here at the with us. Also, we just got word that there are 2 service stations in the Spenard area. Tut Center Service, I understand, has some emergency power and is able to pump gasoline. And also Vance Halverson's service station, that's the Spenard service across from Market Basket, also is pumping gasoline. For anybody who needs gasoline for emergencies only, let's conserve what gasoline we have. Okay.
You didn't know if they'd gotten out. If anyone knows about the E.Q. Summers family, if you could notify KENI, we'll be glad to transmit that information on the air. Also, once again, I'll repeat about Ben I. Perkins. If Ben I. Perkins is listening, or anyone who... Somebody says, he says that it does look like the steam plant at Elmendorf is burning right now. We'll find out more later, I hope. Here's Jim.
Thank you very much, Bob. I have a message here. Attention to rescue teams. Please don't forget about 12 people at Fort Ellsworth Airstrip on Lake Clark, estimated 175 miles northwest of Anchorage. This is signed Basil Hansen. This is a message we received here through our at Southwest, a correction, 175 miles southwest of Anchorage. Mr. Sal Beer, a ham operator here, received this message, and I will repeat it. Attention rescue teams, please don't forget about 12 people at the Fort Ellsworth Airstrip on Lake Clark, estimated 175 miles southwest of Anchorage. That message is signed Basil Hansen. Back to you, Bob.
A family of Michael, are you still on the line? Yeah. The family of Michael Basket, who is 7 years old, can't find him and they're looking for him. What's his description and where was he last?
And said that she knows the whereabouts of Mike Basket. I believe that was the name I heard. He's currently in the jail and he is there with about 12 other friends, and she will bring a complete list. She's going to stay with them for the rest of the night, make sure they're all right. So we'll give you the entire list as soon as we find out what the names are. That was help for aid in the Turnagain area. This is not an authorized aid area as yet, according to civil defense officials, and they will give us the word when it becomes so, and they will let us have news releases concerning that area when they become available. Jeannie?
Yes, this is Genie Chance reporting from inside the public safety building here, where she reported down here so quickly the last time. And now I'm going to break all rules and give him a direct message to keep him from having to come to the building again. Mr. V.F. Grace is advised that Providence Hospital needs 6 cases of 6-inch plaster of Paris. Providence Hospital needs 6 cases of 6-inch plaster of Paris. This is a message for Mr. Grace, if he can manage to get that to Providence Hospital rather quickly. Before we talk to Donald Penner, isn't it, from Greater Anchorage Health, Susitna Park. He lost 2 children there, and he will be on Marston Drive, or rather, he can be notified at the Spenard Fire Department. Donald Penner was going to give us some information here on the use of chlorine. All right, that is 1 teaspoon per
5 gallons.
Per 5 gallons of water of your household bleach to chlorinate your water for emergency purification. If you use snow, take the additional precaution of boiling it. Don't merely melt it, but boil it, and then add 1 teaspoon of your household bleach for each 5 gallons of water. Is that right?
That's right.
What were your fellows out there at Camp Denali doing when this struck?
This is their last day of camp, and they were all due to start for home at midnight tonight. However, that's all been canceled. And we have most of our communications gear here in town, and 150 troops, and the rest are standing by.
And I understand, too, that the transportation has been made available to the civilian community.
That's right. anything we can do to help out, why, rest assured, why, we'll make it available.
And you got here so quickly, too. You got your groups all right in the spirit and mobilized, and you were right here at the Public Safety Building in such short order.
Well, it's the one time of the year that all of the guardsmen from approximately 75 villages and cities in Alaska are here in Anchorage, and it was more time from that standpoint.
Yes, and right after we had a 2-week refresher course of how to react to emergencies, too. And we certainly are grateful that your men were here and were...
Campbell is going full bore, and if anyone needs any water, to bring their buckets down there and fill them up. It's on the house.
The artesian well at 17th and Gamble, and that belongs to whom?
I believe it's Anchorage Oxygen.
Anchorage Oxygen has announced that their artesian well is going full blast, so anybody who is in dire need for water can go to 17th and Gamble for your pure water. In the meantime, if you are using water there at home...
You got 2 slides. You got one about bridge, the bridge is out.
The Connect bridge is out? Was it what did it shake down, you mean?
Must be partly.
Uh-huh.
One of the state engineers.
That's the report we have there. I have a telephone call coming in, too, right now. Can I...
Slight possibility of a 10-foot tidal wave within the next 15 to 20 minutes. We don't expect much damage from it, but we would appreciate people staying out of the low areas if possible.
Thank you very much. That message direct from civil defense officials. And back to some messages that I have also. Al Arms, all his kids are okay. They are downtown here with us.
Can she heard a report from Tyonek? Can you tell me that down there at Civil Defense Headquarters?
As yet, we have no reports from Tyonek. I will ask the runner here to go out and ask Mr. Sourbeer if he's heard anything from Tyonek. And while I'm...
Yes, I am.
Okay, Bob, I understand, I guess we have the phones working up there in the studio. Go ahead, you know what that is.
Okay, Bob, if you're listening, we have a man down here who had some relatives evacuated from the KENI building, and he wondered if you knew where they went after that.
A fellow named Glenn down at the grocer's wholesale warehouse.
Yeah?
Night, watching, you know.
Uh-huh.
And if that tidal wave comes in there, they'll be caught in it.
Down at where?
Grocer's wholesale down on First Avenue.
And you want to get him out of there, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, if what's his name again?
Harry Voice.
Harry Boyce?
Voice, yeah.
Uh-huh. If he's down there and if he's listening to KENI, get out of there because there's going to be a tidal wave. Okay, if there's anybody who can go down there to Grocer's Wholesale Warehouse.
Okay, this is Ty Clark out at the KENI transmitter on the air here now. We've been unable to join you downtown. As you know, all streets leading into Anchorage are blocked off by police and auxiliary police. We tried to make it one time, but we couldn't make it. We thought it would be better to maintain this position out here at the transmitter in view of the fact that the downtown area is being evacuated, so to speak, or we're trying to keep people out from that area. You have enough help in the downtown area, so we'll stay here at the transmitter and join you anytime that you'd like. There's no sign of any tidal wave as yet. We don't know whether or not it'll hit here or not, but we've got a real good vantage point should it occur. So we're standing by here at the KENI transmitter by shortwave if you'd like to call us in.
I'm getting another message here now. I had the address wrong on that Douglas Drive in Bob and Lou Thomas at 2227 Douglas Drive. If anybody knows about them, please call KENI. Can call out and should try to call me. This would be fine, but I'm still unable to call out. So that's the problem out there. I've got an awful lot of messages written down here. I hope I've gotten them all right. We have one line that works coming in. And now I'll repeat the last one I got because it...
Charlie and Jim have both gone over to Government Hill, I believe, have they? Yes. They have left for Government Hill. The toll building on Government Hill is in contact with the South 48. They are going over there, but you have to go by way of Mountain View. And they're going to get in touch with stations down in the South 48, KNPC for one in Los Angeles. I have several other messages. Mrs. Hartlieb is looking for Linda and Wesley Hartlieb.
The Scandinavian Airways System Manager at International Airport, and he tells me that he was in the office. Is that right, Chris?
That's right.
On what floor is the office?
I was on the second floor.
And what happened?
Well, when the first movement started, I didn't even know what was happening, and as it got stronger, I tried to go out to the ramp, and the doors were locked because they were already starting to rebuild the airport. So as it got stronger, I finally had no choice but jump out the window.
were the windows already breaking from the...
Well, actually, I had first to slam through my foot, and none of them were broken, and so I got through and just cuffed myself a little bit on. And so just as I got out the window, I saw the flight tower, it just cracked together like a piece of match. It didn't fall, it more or less fell into itself. And just within seconds, it collapsed more or less, right?
Spot, huh?
And as we ran right towards it, and we could see already some cracks on the runway a little bit right near the airport. Tried to help some of the people up there. One was just coming out, his head was bloody, but he was injured, but he seemed to be all right for the first few minutes. And one person who was jammed in, and I'm afraid he might be a fatality. That's not for sure yet. We were able to get out 2 people on the bottom who were in the flight kitchen, a waitress and a cook. It took us a half hour to dig them out with a saw and jacks and everything else. But
how many people in the area there managed to escape and assist in the rescue operations at International Airport?
I think in the flight tower, these were the only really injured people. The rest of them were able to run out somewhere or the other. So I think those 2 people which were in the flight kitchen and were jammed in for about an hour, plus that one person on the tower, that FAA man. I think these were the only 3 injured persons that I know of.
Was there any panic in the area at the time, Chris?
Oh, there most certainly was. Everybody was...
Panic or just excitement?
For the first moment, there was panic, but as soon as it started to slow down, of course, everybody was still waiting for a second shock, but then it got organized pretty fast. There were some fire trucks who tried to lift up the flight tower to help out this one man who was completely covered with rocks, and I think they got him out after about 10-15 minutes, but I don't know what his situation is. So altogether, when I left, it just looked worse than after the war, and I have been over there. It just is a terrible mess, and I think it's probably going to take weeks before they're going to start operations into airport again. Probably before anyone will have to use Elmendorf.
You compared this to the way Europe looked during the war. Have you ever gone through an earthquake before?
I have never really experienced an earthquake like that, no. But I mean, the end effect was the same if there was a bomb blast, a major effect, or an earthquake. Except the bomb blast sometimes takes longer than this. Just take a few seconds, and the whole tower and all the buildings collapsed. It's the worst thing I've ever seen.
Well, we certainly do thank you, Chris, for this eyewitness account. By the way, how about the main portion of International Airport building? Did it collapse, or any of the walls collapse in it?
Some of the walls collapsed, and the inside, of course, all the kitchens and all the inside areas are completely unusable. Everything fell, but the walls itself, most places are still standing.
And well, was this at a time when there were many passengers? Was there an incoming flight or outgoing flight or
Frankly,
anything like this?
I think Alaska Airlines had just taken off 15 minutes before that, and I think it was the last large jet which was on the ground. So in that respect, it was kind of a fortunate time to happen. I just shortly thereafter, after the earthquake, I saw one jet. I didn't get a chance to see what carrier it was, coming down and having more or less a look and seeing no tower. He probably decided to better find some other place.
Overhead.
I still don't know if, as regards to Fairbanks, what the situation is up there.
I don't either. We're trying to get word through KENI right now. We have a sister station in Fairbanks, KFAR, and we're trying to establish communications with them and attempt to find out what the situation is in Fairbanks. We do understand that the earthquake did cover rather extensively the entire area of Alaska.
Count the possibility of relocating the entire downtown area of this earthquake-ravaged city. He told the news conference that a complete geological survey of Anchorage is called for, to use his words, so that we can build around it. The mayor said his findings are that the worst damage occurred in bluff areas and that slippage was responsible. Now, he said in those areas there were layers of clay between layers of gravel, and they slipped. The shock itself left other buildings like this one, the City Public Safety Building in which he spoke, relatively unharmed. The 4th Avenue District, the worst hit commercial area, is atop a fairly steep rise. However, on one side, the south side, if you've had an opportunity to see any of the downtown area, the north side of 4th Avenue, especially beginning around D Street, on down through the Denali building, is a completely ravaged area. The one side of the street all of the buildings and the businesses, some of them have just dropped completely down, plus the pavement itself on that side of the street. While fantastically so, the opposite side of the street, the south side of the street, is relatively undamaged. However, this is not the case on Fifth Avenue, as witnessed by the J.C. Penney building, which suffered major damage and is a total loss and is now being torn down by wrecking crews. This is the worst building, or the worst damage to be inflicted on any building on Fifth Avenue in the immediate downtown area. Now, there's no pattern for this earthquake, absolutely no pattern. Take L Street, for example, or L Street and an alley just a half a block beyond L, or this side of L Street, where the earthquake seemed to just run a swath of damage, total damage, right along a given line. So it's a jigsaw puzzle that has been completed here by nature herself, probably depending upon the exact structure of the earth beneath the surface. Also having to do with, as the mayor says, in bluff areas. Now, the Turnagain residential area, of course, is the hardest hit area where residences are located. Most homes were lost in the Turnagain Bluff area, which sat above Crook Inlet. And unfortunately so, these were some of the most expensive homes in the Anchorage area. Chirac said feasible means would be sought to improve bad areas, as he put it, those that might slip again after another shock, should we have any more severe shocks, and we hope that we won't. But he said, we don't feel this earthquake need deter our future. We should just learn what we have and how to deal with it. Incidentally, airplanes, and we've had lots of them flying around the area, both helicopters, small planes, and large planes as well. Well, the police have asked aviators not to fly within 5 miles of downtown Anchorage because low-flying airplanes are shaking buildings in which rescue crews are working. Now, this is extremely important and extremely dangerous, too, especially for helicopters and jet-powered aircraft, because helicopters can send shock waves through the air and cause this vibration, which would tend to make walls of buildings collapse. Businesses east of Campbell Street. These are 2 automobile companies, one in operation, the other one under construction. The Alaska Sales and Service building on the right-hand side going out East 5th, just before Merrill Field, collapsed and is a total loss. This was a tremendously big building being constructed for the General Motors dealer in this area, Alaska Sales and Service. It's considered a total loss. This was a new type construction and a new design. Well, we've certainly found out that it apparently was not feasible. This is something that will have to be determined later. Now, further on down East 5th Avenue, on the opposite side of the street, another total loss, the showrooms and much of the shop area of the 5th Avenue Chrysler Center, here again, was struck hard. But in between, no major damage that we could see anyway in our tour of the devastated area over the weekend. So that is the extreme point on one end, and of course our immediate downtown area on the other end, and then major damage out on Romig Hill and in the Turnagain area. When I say Romig Hill, I'm speaking of the West Anchorage High School. This beautiful $5.5 million high school, all of the classroom facilities are gone. It's very evident when you drive by up there, as many people did today, to see that the windows all smashed out and the concrete blocks twisted in gruesome angles. And the second floor ceiling just ruptured. The Turnagain area, as you probably have already seen in extra editions that have been published by the Anchorage Daily Times, just a scene of utter destruction, especially out on the area of the homes, Marston Drive, Lusac Drive, and those bordering the bluff on Crook Inlet. Now, another extremely critical situation tonight, in addition to the airplanes staying away from the downtown area, is that of leaking fuel into the Crook Inlet area along the Anchorage waterfront. This is an extremely important item. There is leakage in the storage tanks of fuel companies down in the Anchorage port area. Now, the fuel is leaking not only on the waterfront area, but also into the inlet itself. And this is a situation that is going to exist for a period of maybe 3 or 4 days. You maybe heard earlier that it would be just until the incoming tide, until the tide would take the fuel and take it on out the inlet. But the leak is so bad, or the rupture is so bad, I understand, that it will be leaking for some time until the tanks are depleted of stock. So this situation will last for 3 or 4 days, maybe even longer, depending on how bad the leak is. Anyway, the waterfront area and the water along the edge of Cook Inlet is completely soaked with highly inflammable fuel. So therefore, no smoking whatsoever in any area in relationship to the railroad terminal yards, the port area, the waterfront area, and those living anywhere along the Cook Inlet area. This is why earlier today we found many people in the Spenard area burning refuse, garbage, and material debris from their earthquake-shattered homes. They were burning this material in their backyard. This is another extremely bad hazard because with these fires going in the Spenard area, the sparks from the fires could be carried by winds down to this critical area that I've just mentioned, and we could have a major fire here. Now, fortunately, although we are extremely hard hit by an earthquake, we have not had any serious fires. We've had a number of fires, but they have been of a very minor nature. The Anchorage Fire Department has been very alert along that line, as have all of the area fire departments. Many of our neighboring communities, such as Seward, Whittier, and Valdez, have been ravaged by fire, in addition to the earthquake damage and tidal wave damage. We've only had the earthquake damage. We do not want the fire, so one portion will be coming from our radio station, KENI, which is operating, as I mentioned before, around the clock on an emergency basis with units in the field and also with a permanent setup at the Civil Defense Headquarters in the Public Safety Building. So after television goes off, the programs go off, the audio stays on with the radio. IFB expects to resume service from Anchorage to Fairbanks within 10 days to 2 weeks, and service to Portage within 2 weeks, according to R.H. Bruce, who is an official of the Alaska Railroad. Bruce said last Friday's earthquake shifted the approach to the Matanuska Trestle and damaged 1 mile of track in the Birchwood area, about 20 miles north of Anchorage. Now, south of Anchorage, Bruce says, there are 3 deep holes in the track bed which have to be filled. Now, one of these, which is just 2 miles south of Anchorage, is 48 feet deep. There are 2 others 20 feet deep and one 50-foot deep in the Potter Hill area. No on-the-ground survey has been made of the trackage between Portage and Seward because they've just been unable to get down that way. The railroad condition is much worse south of Anchorage than it is north of Anchorage. Incidentally, in case you're wondering about highway travel, the highway to the north is open and is passable. The Connect River Bridge is open to one-way traffic, and illegal loads are permissible. You can drive all the way through to Palmer, which sustained only a minimum amount of damage, and you can drive all the way on through to Glen Ellen and to Fairbanks and Toke under the normal way, but you cannot drive south because there are many areas along the Seward Highway that are blocked. We understand that there are large slags along the highway, and a minimum of 3 bridges have been knocked out as a result of the earthquake. Now, the government geologists are analyzing the worst of Anchorage's earthquake cracks to determine how the land can be made usable again. A.L. Renshaw, the city's design supervisor for the Public Works Department, said the Bluff area, that's the residential area which fell into the sea near the Cook Inlet, as we mentioned before. Renshaw said we've already got just about all of the streets passable. And this is true. There were great ruptures on L Street leading out to Romick Hill, one at the base of Romick Hill, which was knocked down. And of course, L Street itself, between 4th Avenue and 7th Avenue, the street there just collapsed 20 to 30 feet, and that has been filled in, and all streets are passable now in a short period of time. Now, except for Turnagain, the biggest hole in the built-up area is on 4th Avenue, downtown, the city's main street. Workmen quickly filled in a dirt access road from the usable part of 4th to the hole 30 feet below, and trucks have used it to haul away salvage. Renshaw said, "We'll get all that rebuilt, but I doubt that we'll do much on it this year." Many areas of upheaval were outside the city proper, so only trees and other growth suffered. Now, lesser cracks can be filled, Renshaw said, and Mayor Chirac has estimated street repairs at about $8.5 million. 15 miles of roadway, he says, must be replaced, and another 7.5 miles torn up for utility relocation. Anchorage officials, of course, have no precedents to follow in such work since no similar earthquake has hit the United States in nearly 60 years. And, of course, we're going back now to 1906 with the great San Francisco earthquake, which killed more than 400 persons. We're very fortunate that our casualty figure has been as low as it has been. I think part of this, the reason behind this is the makeup of the earth structure itself under the city of Anchorage and the area. It's relatively soft, so therefore we were able to absorb more of this tremendous jolt. Where in San Francisco lies a much rockier or more solid base than Anchorage. I think this probably accounted for a lot for lessening our casualty figure. Another thing, because of the time of day, 5:36 in the afternoon on a Good Friday afternoon. Of course, no schools. Most of the stores had closed or were in the process of closing. And let's say that a minimum number of people were in the downtown area. Speaking of our casualty figure, we understand that the casualty figure for Anchorage now stands at approximately 22 dead, with still about 20 persons missing and unaccounted for. However, the picture changes all the time, and it could go much higher, maybe several days before an accurate count is received. As far as the state picture is concerned, they're now saying around 100 dead. The amount of loss in the earthquake is figured very, very roughly because just not enough time has been had to completely assay the damage and to analyze the damage and the loss. The biggest loss, of course, is in property damage, personal property damage to homes and businesses. The city of Anchorage, as far as the municipal facilities are concerned, estimates conservatively its loss at between $35 and $50 million. Governor Egan has issued a figure for the Anchorage area of roughly $200 million, and for the state of Alaska, $250 million. But he is readily admits that it may reach $500 million or $500 million. It's quite possible. Incidentally, Governor Egan, after a personal flying inspection of the earthquake damage areas of Alaska, was quite taken aback by the whole picture, as has all government officials. And he immediately upped that estimate, which he made yesterday, of 250 to 350 million. And as I just said, he said that it could even go higher. He emphasized that his estimate is based on a still incomplete assessment of the damage wrought by the destructive earthquake and subsequent tidal wave action and fire. He emphasized, too, that he considers his new figures even very conservative estimates. Incidentally, Governor Egan is going to speak to the people of Anchorage and the surrounding areas by radio and television tonight at 8 o'clock. He'll speak from these studios. So this is, as I mentioned, because we are in an emergency-type broadcast and telecast as well. Incidentally, we might say that we were very fortunate in having television back on the air at all. We were very lucky here in the Lathrop building in downtown Anchorage to have received only a minor damage in comparison with other large buildings in the downtown area. We made some minor repairs to our television transmitter, and we were able to return to the air last night for a brief period of time. In this regard, I would like to say that our building here, the Lathrop building, which houses the 4th Avenue Theater as well, is one of the few large buildings in the downtown disaster area that has not been condemned or declared unfit for human occupancy. In addition to that, it is the only building in the disaster area that is inhabited, and we are operating from it. And so Kozlowski's men's store right there, you can stand and walk right up to the sign on the top of the building. The ground just literally gave way and everything sank. 2 whole blocks are this way, from 4th and D to 4th and B. 2 complete blocks. All right, as I said, official count, I've heard reports all the way from 45 to 65 shocks in all, from the original one at 5:36 Friday afternoon. And 2 or 3 of them, as you well know, were pretty doggone good aftershocks. As a matter of fact, in some seismographs around the country and around the world, they were, 2 of them I know were regarded as, or thought to be, brand new earthquakes, and they were just aftershocks. But they have continued to rock the area, as civil defense officials announced the death toll may exceed 100. To be as strong as the original one. He said there had been 10 to 12 jolts and a number of smaller ones. Several were felt here yesterday. We did not feel any today. State Civil Defense Headquarters said no new damage of any significance had been reported. The casualty count from the Civil Defense Headquarters lists 21 known dead, 83 missing and presumed dead, and 55 hurt. Officials say the list, of course, is not complete. By the quake, the Mayor Bruce Woodford, however, said hope had been abandoned for the 30 listed as missing. And teams of Red Cross workers assembled from throughout the country today. They flew to Seward, which was also terrifically damaged, and into the Glen Ellen, Gulkana area, to which about 900 persons were evacuated from Valdez. The Red Cross said it received especially urgent requests to bring baby supplies, formulas, and disposable diapers. Electrical and water service were still sharply curtailed in many places. Reports indicated church attendance. Yesterday, Easter Sunday, was light. We had church services here in Anchorage yesterday, despite the extremely hazardous conditions. Yet, we're all, literally speaking, in the same boat. We all have to start over from scratch, and I'm sure that many of us will. And the great spirit of Alaska will remain here. To kind of take the words from a couple of the J.C. Penney officials who have arrived here. After the great destruction of the Penney building in downtown Anchorage, a 5-story building open for only 1 year, a total loss. The 2 J.C. Penney officials said, we will build again, bigger and better than before. And to the economy, as you well know. Alaska was looking forward to this year to a banner tourist season with the Southeast Marine Highway ferry system in full operation. Business conditions were steadily improving, and the outlook for the fishing industry, one of the most important segments of the state's economic base, was very promising after last year's dismal season in the important Bristol Bay red salmon fishery. And then came the earthquake. And now, what do we have? We are in extreme dire condition. Let's go to Kodiak now. By pictures, Kodiak lost 75% of its business community, roughly 50% of its fishing business, many canneries destroyed, automobiles. Look at these scenes of destruction at Kodiak. We understand that more than 300 families are homeless. More than 300 persons are being housed in temporary quarters at the naval base at Kodiak. Vessels destroyed, washed up by the tidal wave, and a flood condition existing almost over the entire area of the island. I cannot recall all the names of the towns in the island of Kodiak, but major damage to the entire area. Just seems like total destruction everywhere we look. At the time of the earthquake here in Anchorage, as soon as we were back on the air on radio in 65 minutes, Jim Dodson and I were talking. All power was off. Telephone lines were out. Teletype were out. We had no communications. We were completely cut off from the outside world. We wondered, how far could this destruction have carried? What was the extent of the earthquake? We really felt in our hearts that it was widespread because of the tremendous velocity and the intensity recorded here, but we didn't want to say really, but now we find out that it's a major part of Alaska's economy here is at stake. It was a terrible thing. The small businessman came back to Anchorage today, as he did in Seward, in Valdez, in Kodiak, in Cordova, and other areas. You can't keep good men down. They chopped away doors. They pushed away through jagged panes of glass to examine what used to be their livelihoods. They hauled away their salvageable stock. They hunted for vacant stores, but they showed no despair in the wake of Alaska's monstrous earthquake. They all said basically the same thing. We plan to start all over again. We don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it.